How hard is it to just play dumb? That's what politicians do.
They're great at it.
That's what to expect. There's even an email in the, Epstein's like, oh, I have to give $1 million to the Clintons. Okay, I'll do it. What is this for again? He doesn't even know, right? And Hillary Clinton is out front saying, no, there's a lot of people involved. So can you discuss what you expect from the Clintons and, what we know about the Clintons that is not being discussed by the media?
Yeah, so I think we can expect similar stuff to what Wexner did with the Clinton deposition. I doubt it will go too deep. Again, and I think as has been the media coverage of Clinton this entire time, it will only focus on Clinton after he left the office of U.S. president. It will not focus on anything before then, even though Jeffrey Epstein went to the Clinton White House 17 times, and maybe more, because there is also the case where a lot of Clinton White House visitor logs have obviously fake names on them to cover up the identities of the people who were coming and going. I'm sorry, but 15 visits to the Clinton White House by Donald Duck, I don't really think that was Donald Duck in the same period, so it could potentially be more. No, I mean, that's literally a real thing. So it could potentially be more, but that's 17 confirmed visits we know about. Every time he went, he had a different woman on his arm. And they were of age, though. I should point that out. But, this is what Epstein learned from his weapons dealer friends in the 1980s. People like Adnan Khashoggi, for example, who on his yacht would have a harem of women, it was called, basically butter up top corporate CEOs and government officials so that he could, grease the wheels for his arms deals and his business. Epstein was really no different, just he was running more businesses than arguably Khashoggi was for a different set of employers, and some of the same employers as well when you count Israeli intelligence and the CIA in the mix. So again, there's going to be no scrutiny of these 1990s ties or these visits. A big reason why is the man that Epstein was meeting most of those times, Mark Middleton, because Mark Middleton was central to this aforementioned Chinagate scandal involving Southern Air Transport. When he was questioned in his role in Chinagate, pled the fifth 22 times, and then Clinton left office, 9/11 happened, and no one ever investigated Chinagate again. Even though it was basically I would argue one of the reasons for that is that it intimately, even though it's called Chinagate, it intimately involved Israel basically selling sensitive U.S. military technology using this Iran-Contra network to the Chinese military. Obviously, an outrageous scandal for U.S. national security, but that shows you how influential this network is, and how, a lot of stuff about China, let's give up all our rights for a Chinese arms race with AI is a complete bullcrap narrative, among other things. But basically, Mark Middleton is, we know that Epstein ended up dead in a prison cell. We know Jean-Luc Brunel ended up dead in a prison cell. The same year that Jean-Luc Brunel died in a prison cell, Mark Middleton died extremely suspiciously, even for other members of the Clinton kill list, as it's called. He allegedly wrapped around his neck an extension cord, hung himself, and then managed to shoot himself with a shotgun in the chest. That was discovered 30 feet away, even though investigators initially said there was no weapon at the scene. And then immediately after, a judge sealed all photographic and other evidence of the crime so it would never be released to stop the spread of harmful conspiracy theories.
Right, a gun that's 30 feet away.
You ask the Clintons about Mark Middleton, you will see how insane this all is, and they will not go there, because obviously if they did, it would probably implicate Leslie Wexner, as well as a lot of other people in this network that have sold out U.S. national security, to ostensible adversaries for decades.
What
with
about
Israel's direct involvement, our supposed greatest ally. And one of the reasons this was happening is that arguably the most influential billionaire manipulating Israel's security complex apparatus in that period was a billionaire named Shaul Eisenberg that had a lot of ties to the Chinese government, and it brokered their ties to Israel's national security state in the late 70s, and helped bring Robert Maxwell, among other people, to Mossad. He was a major operator. And so, There's no real scrutiny of that relationship. But I would argue this goes even further. This goes to something that Samuel Pisar, Robert Maxwell's longtime confidant and lawyer, and a co-conspirator in some of these things I'm talking about, openly told Congress in the early 70s that what was happening was the end of the relevance of the nation state and the rise of what he called the trans-ideological corporation, where multinational Western corporations were getting in business with state-owned corporations in China and Russia, the communist bloc, basically, and we're building a network, an economic network that would supersede the national governments around the world and would basically take over the world. And he was asked by Congress if this was bad, and he was like, not really. And he said this in the early 70s. And he, along with people like the heads of IBM, people from PepsiCo, people from some of the biggest corporations in the United States, openly created committees to make this happen. Gosh. And he probably had intelligence ties. He represented Steve Jobs for Apple, and Steve Jobs was like, I don't know if he works for the CIA or the KGB. Probably both, because if you look at Robert Maxwell, you know, he was definitely involved with you know, the KGB, among other groups. He worked with KGB officers to spirit gold out of the Soviet Union, and a lot of these guys were involved in capital flight from Russia after the collapse of the Soviet Union. They funneled a lot of it to Israel, where they helped get and install, you know, Russian mobsters like Simeon Mogilevich, get them Israeli passports so they could penetrate the U.S. financial system. And our current president had involvement with some of those characters through his real estate deals and helped them launder money. So I don't really think we're going to see meaningful prosecution of these groups with the current crowd that's in charge.
Before we move on,
they've been on the take.
Before we move on from the Clintons, the Clinton Foundation stands out to me as a major question, something to focus on. Do you think any and the Epstein's ties to the Clinton Foundation and how it was used, whether it was for sex trafficking operations around the world, medicine, et cetera? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so the Clinton Foundation, I would argue, was largely set up. Major aspects of it were provably set up by Epstein. That's particularly true for the Clinton Health Access Initiative and a lot of its work in Africa with AIDS, which obviously coincides with a lot of vaccination policy. And at the same time that Clinton set up his foundation, Bill Gates set up his foundation. They collaborate together on those things. And Epstein has also obviously had an interest in these types of networks as well. For health, they say. But obviously, you know, in the COVID era, we became a lot more skeptical of those types of quote unquote philanthropies. And obviously, Bill Gates, as well as Epstein himself, as particularly revealed by some of these new releases, but it was known before, have an outsized interest in eugenics and also transhumanism, which is the modern rebranding of eugenics. Even some of the people that used to run the British Eugenics Society, like Julian Huxley, you know, authored texts in the mid 20th century talking about how transhumanism was the future of eugenics, and this is how they'd sell it to a new generation. These people are intimately involved with a lot of this stuff. And, you know, Epstein was intimately involved in those aspects, but we have to go back to Epstein being intimately involved also in illicit cash flows, which the Clintons absolutely love and have loved for a long time, ever since Clinton was governor of Arkansas through the presidency and after. And so, you know, Clinton Foundation has obviously been dogged by what were once rumors, but thanks to WikiLeaks became, you know, proven that it was basically a pay-to-play scam, and that they were taking money and then returning political favors when Hillary Clinton was, you know, Secretary of State, or they thought she might even be president, right? And then after, you know, she lost to Trump in 2016, it dried up essentially. But also, you know, in addition to the other philanthropies, you have the Clinton Global Initiative, which was allegedly Epstein's idea. According to his defense lawyers, he was part of the core team that developed the concept for the Clinton Global Initiative, which is kind of like a Clinton brokered Davos, you know, World Economic Forum style meeting, and they passed money around to Ghislaine Maxwell's Terramar, for example, among other things. And so Epstein was obviously very sought out in the not-profit world, arguably because he was very good at tax shelters, and a lot of these billionaires want to get tax write-offs or not have to pay money in tax. And so setting up these philanthropies the right way, when Epstein's background, going back to his time at Bear Stearns, was in tax evasion. Obviously, I think that points to why they were so interested in having him be involved in setting up their nonprofits. And there's also the fact that you had Epstein, I think it was Bill Gates, wanted to talk to Epstein about getting a Nobel Prize, apparently because he had influence over the Nobel Prize Committee. So, I mean, it went even beyond nonprofits. And so a lot of this world that the public has been shown about these do-gooder nonprofits and these do-gooder philanthropists, it's, Epstein was an expert in money laundering. He also became an expert in reputation laundering for these billionaires, most of which are criminals and some of whom are provably connected to organized crime.
Well, don't you hate when people say, I told you so? Yeah, that's me, actually, because I did tell you, sorry, but I told you that gold and silver were going to reap the benefits of excessive money printing, the Fed just printing money like crazy, overvalued markets, global unrest. It's here. It's happened. Gold and silver have both soared to all-time highs. So I hope you called our friends at Lear Capital and you bought some. If you didn't, trust me, it's not too late. Experts are predicting even higher prices ahead. And they get it. They know what's coming. Isn't it time, folks? Get yourself some gold and silver today. Call the best in the business. I personally use them. So does Natalie. We both do. And our kids do as well in their IRAs. Lear Capital, it's a free phone call. There's no obligation to purchase, just education information on protecting and growing your wealth with gold and silver. I'm sure there are many of you that have called and haven't purchased yet for whatever reason. Don't make the same mistake twice. Now is the time to get some gold shipped directly to you or shift some dollars in your retirement accounts over to physical gold and silver. It's easy to do. Natalie and I have done it for both, and I've been extremely satisfied with Lear's knowledge, their service, their prices. I urge you to call today and learn more. Call them, 1-800-613-3557, or go to LearRedacted.com, and you can receive up to $20,000 in free bonus medals with a qualified purchase.